How are we, folks, ladies and gentlemen, babes and bubbers? Welcome to the new edition of Rushcast. Did you notice I put new edition there? Because I can't remember what number it is. Is this 6 or 7 now? I think we're on 7.
This is 7. I think you corrected yourself on the on YouTube.
I did, because I got last week's one wrong. So
this is number 7.
Welcome to the very organised Rushcast, where we are making our way through Rush's back catalogue, an album per episode, and we will be stopping along with side projects and solo albums on the way. So yeah, here we are, 7 weeks in, and this week we are in the 80s, folks, and we are in permanent waves. How are you, Paul?
I'm good, Joe. You having a good week so far?
Yep, we're off at the moment, and we're not back at work now till. Well, you might be different to me. I'm on Saturday night doing a work.
Oh no, I'm not back until Monday night.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm enjoying the week off, and
yeah, it's been good. Nice weather, although we had a bit of rain today.
Yep. Yeah, it was a bit humid as well, and
yeah, it was.
But yeah, we're mowing the lawn and all that good stuff.
Yeah, definitely domestic.
And yeah,
bliss.
Been listening to Permanent Waves on repeat, and yeah, we're in the another new era of Rush, really. Although this is a special album in the catalogue, really, because CD English nearly fell out, because it's another transitional album for Rush, isn't it? Because it's got one step forward but still one step behind. So you don't ever seem to get a real clean break with Rush, do you? It is a very constantly moving, evolving.
It's always in flux, with them. And yes, again, a transitional album, nonetheless important. I think as Caressive still is for 2112, then this album is that stepping stone onto the next album, which obviously we will talk about then, but a big album for them next time. So this was the stepping stone for it, and I rather like this album. This was the one that I was eagerly awaiting after getting into them, and then it was released, and I think I got it within the first week of it being released. So I've got an original pressing of it, I guess you would want to say, and there it is. You can see it on there. There we go again, the big print version for me for the lyrics. Yes, and this is I saw them on this tour, and it was only the second ever gig that I'd ever been to, but this was the first one was a double header, Bruford and Brand X at the venue Victoria. Slightly different, but it's still brilliant, still really good. And it wasn't quite what you would call a gig, whereas this, when I see Rush, and I've got the world tour program, which is basically just the same size as the actual album, was at the famous Hammersmith Odeon, and I see them on the now famous 5-night marathon that they did there on their European, well, certainly British tour. So, it was a special night. Cost of a ticket was a princely sum of £2.50. But
that wouldn't even get you to put your coat in the coat room.
No, definitely not. But they say it's relative, but I'm not so sure. But yeah, I was up in the circle when I see these do the Permanent Waves tour. But yeah, eagerly awaited album, and then it was pretty much on my turntable for a number of weeks as I listened to it again and again, and just poring over the lyrics and everything. It was an exciting time for me. I really enjoyed this album. It was a good album, hot off the press, so to speak. So. Yeah, released, I think.
Did you know you'd be doing a podcast with someone who wasn't even born for another 4 years?
Oh, thank you very much, Joe. That makes me feel so much better. 14th of January 1980 was the release date on this. So, obviously, you've listened to this. what is you can hit. There is a difference on this album to what's gone before, isn't there?
Well, I think they've cut the long songs, but they've not cut anything back in terms of complexity and
No.
Technicality, and they're still doing what they're doing, and those 20-minute songs were always in sections anyway, and they're but I think here is where they have mastered the art of being catchy, and they've making memorable, catchy songs on for as much as that's a dirty word in rock and prog and all the rest of it, but they've managed to make a 3-4 minute song that's memorable, that is palatable, without sacrificing any of the artistic merit.
It's still their technical and playing prowess is still very much to the fore.
To grant a bit of grace to the record labels back in the pressure for the 2112 days, I think this is probably the album they were asking for.
Yeah.
When it came to 2112, it was like, I think when they delivered this one, they probably went, "Well, what bloody took you so long? This is what we wanted all along." But
but they always were going to do things their way, and that was it. That was it. They might have taken a while to get round to this, but this is where they were, and it for them, to me, it's like not that I mean I love all the prog stuff, but this was just a breath of fresh air, I guess. And I think very much for them as collectively as a band, I think they really wanted to get away from the heaviness and the real elongated process of getting hemispheres together, and then the subsequent tour, which was their longest, and I've just put a marker on that, their longest headlining tour. They still did an awful lot of dates. They did more dates when they were first around because they were basically opening.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
and they were playing something over 250 gigs a year. But no, just to make sure people might say, "Oh no, they were touring a lot more than that." No, this is their headlining.
You mean Eric from Facebook?
Well, whoever. It was their longest headlining tour of hemispheres, and it didn't quite end there either, because I was pouring through the program just to sort of get a gist of what had happened, and it says here, June the 4th, 1979, the tour of the hemispheres was brought to a successful but relieved close at the Pink Pop Festival in Netherlands, which I think you were talking about last week.
That was on the live,
and that's on the live. But that was the last date of that tour officially. So, and they said it's basically 8 months they were touring for across Canada, States, Britain, and Western Europe. And it says here they were glad to be returning home for their first vacation in about 4 years. And that was that was a long old haul that they were really, basically they weren't home very much at all in that time. So this time they were going to do things a little bit differently, and they actually got six weeks off, I think, before getting themselves into this album. So they said it'd never been economic.
And that's nothing really in the big scheme of things.
No, it isn't. No, they said it wasn't economically possible for them in the past to have time off, but it says in brackets, really not this time either. Neither. But they did have 6 weeks off, and then they just came into this very fresh, this album.
That Pink Pop Festival as well. There seems to be, the fans seem to have it in their heads that there's an uncut full recording of that concert that sounds brilliant, and someone somewhere's hiding from it. It's a similar one with Black Sabbath at the is it Asbury Park or something like that, where Ozzy comes out in that yellow frilly outfit. And yeah, they were particularly good that day. And I don't think they had gigged in a while. It was their sort of return gig.
Yeah.
And there's footage of it, of a couple of songs here and there, and there's various bootlegs, even on Amazon. You can get it, but read the reviews. They all say this sounds awful. Like, surely, yeah. There's always that golden live recording that they think is about, but yeah, I'm sure he would have seen like
it might sort of be something that's sort of in the history, in the myth.
Well,
it's a mythology.
If it was there, you'd have it. Why would they release it with one song missing?
Exactly.
But I've got the anniversary of.
Have you picked that?
Again with,
yeah, lovely.
This the quality's failing. That is dropping a bit now though, because with Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres, you've got this big thick book with write-ups and full of information, really good in-depth article. You've got nothing with this. You've literally just got lyrics, a couple of photos, and liner notes. You do get cool artwork to complement each song.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, you get a second CD of live stuff, but it's not one concert. It's a collective. So I dare say you might have some songs on this at your show.
Yeah, probably.
So yeah, Permanent Waves Tour 1980, and you've got Beneath, Between and Behind, Vital and the Snow Dogs, Xanadu, Spirit of Radio, Natural Science, The Trees, Cygnus X1, Cygnus X1 Book 2. Both are abbreviated. Closer to the Heart, Jacob's Ladder and Free Will, and then it's live in Manchester, live in London, Manchester. It's a mix-up of Manchester.
Yeah,
and London.
It could have been any of those nights.
And there's one Missouri as well. So you don't get a concert. You get. I mean, don't get me wrong. It sounds good.
Yeah.
But you get basically just a live compilation.
Yeah.
Whilst in the past ones you've had, Farewell to Kings. You got 2 CDs, so 3 CDs in total. So you got this entire concert, and yeah, big write-ups and all the rest of it. You had other bands covering songs, while this one just seems to have. Here you go.
Well, yeah, okay.
I have got the moving pictures one as well, though, so I'll show that off on the next episode.
Yeah, of course. And as I'm not going to jump ahead, but obviously Moving Pictures was another game changer for them.
Well, Moving Pictures as well, they did that all singing, all dancing edition, didn't they, with the LP, and it's in this big box and it's got everything in there.
Yeah, indeed.
Nice if you can afford it, but
yeah, exactly. But anyway, we're jumping ahead again, aren't we? Which we tend to do. But this album, obviously, what a great way to open the album, Spirit of Radio. Just that guitar lick straight away. It's sort of quite in your face straight away, which they said obviously was harkening back to the old days where they hit the ground running straight away with it. So it's sort of a return to form with regards to that. Massive seller for them as well. I think in the UK, where did it get to? It got quite high. Oh, number 13 in the UK charts, which was their highest charting single here in the UK.
Yeah, Spirit of Radio was the first ever Rush song I heard. And that was on one of the many sort of classic rock compilations that we had on the radio in the engineer's room.
Yeah,
where I worked at the time. I used to work in Lloyd's. And remember the guy's name, Jerry Curley. He was the man that introduced me to Thin Lizzy and all sorts of bands. And he wasn't a massive Rush fan, but he did appreciate him. And one of the many cassettes he made for the stereo in the engineer's room, I remember this song quite clearly. And that riff, that
and then the big
drums, it just the way it all just comes together like an engine, just all the parts just and then just that
it is.
It's a perfectly catchy rock song, but with this fantastic introduction, and
it is.
And it's just got everything. It's got great chorus. And then it goes into that little reggae section towards the ends, like the little interlude before that final.
But it's a great song, and it obviously is a favourite amongst the fans. And it really was a metaphor with the slightly different styles they kept bringing into the song, was a metaphor for them, you going through the radio frequencies and picking up various types of music. It's sort of very much, a rock song, but as you said, you picked up the reggae bit, which is obvious, but the second verse is a slightly punkish vibe in there as well. And of course, with the choruses, you've got sequencer and more the new wave influence on it. Again, the chorus on this, although it's gadgy, the music actually goes down and you just got the bass drum going with this sequencer going, and then Geddy's voice coming in. There's a bit of percussion there, but it's sort of the opposite of what you would possibly expect it to be. But it just fits. It just fits really well. And I think with regards to this album, I'm just looking quickly at the notes on this. It says about the lyric largely positive, praising the virtues of radio. The final section of the song parodies Simon and Garfunkel's The Sound of Silence. A cursory glance at the lyric sheet reveals that the word profits now in fact read profits. Profits as in, listen profits, to me, I'm a prophet, but profit as in money.
Yeah.
The concert hall, that got changed. I'm looking at, and I looked this up on my one, it definitely says profits as in monetary profit.
Yeah.
But I think there was they were trying to put it, it was misprinted, I think, at first. But this is an original. I only had this. I'm sure it was under a week that I got it, but I think it might have been a problem before they actually did a general release. It might have been a quick, like an original batch, and then
I think at that point, the first pressing.
Yeah.
That would have.
Well, certainly here in Britain, I can't see it. It might have been in America. It might have been where they see the different types.
I don't know. Anyway, the words of the prophets. It's a play on word.
It's just an aside, really. I just thought it was an interesting little comment on it. And again on this one, you don't, like you said, you don't hear it. That there is a very subtle shift in time signature in this song, about halfway through the song, and certainly we hear it with the reggae bit where they really do cut it right down, and very clever. Again, we say it all the time. Really, you don't think it's going to work, but when you listen back to it, you think, yeah, it works. From somebody who tries. Audioscope, what remains of Audioscope, we actually play a version of Spirit of Radio, and believe me, it's not an easy one to play. Even to just get somewhere close to it, for me, is is good. If I can get close to it.
Surely you haven't got enough drums on your kit to play the.
Well, no, not really. But I have a go.
That's something I've always wondered, because you see some drummers, like say you got Neil Peart or Michael Portnoy or something like that, when they're just in this cave of drums, they're just and then you got another guy just got this basic setup.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being really, one of my favourite drummers is Gene Hoglan, who's been in pretty much every metal band. His nickname is the Atomic Clock, and he is, he's just, and I remember just seeing when I was thinking how basic his drum kit was. And I suppose a lot of it is on his feet, but then you see these other drummers, and I do always wonder, does it actually matter? Like, are there actually songs where you would go, well, no, I haven't got enough drums? Like, I would need extra drums to play that.
It's all about the voicings.
Yeah,
Of the
Lars
drums.
Ulrich's another one. Lars
Yeah,
Ulrich from
exactly.
Metallica.
It's
It's like Ringo Starr's drum kit.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
it's a question about the voicings. Obviously, if you've got the smaller toms, they're very much high pitched, and I mean certainly Piet is one of them where he goes right the way around the kit and it's integral to the part of the song. Then yes, he does need them. You know, and it's. But I think generally when you're playing, I don't even like to call it this, but if you're playing more pedestrian sort of drumming where you're literally just holding down a beat, then of course you don't need all of the kit. The the extra drums are there for your various voicings and phrasings and transitional stuff. Like you might be going through, and you know, you're just setting up to go into the next part of the song. You know, it just gives it that little bit of a lift. And every drummer's different with all of this. I mean, Pierre definitely had an awful lot of drums at this point, and he would scale it back a little bit towards the end, but it was still a big kit. So yes and no. It depends on the style of the drummer and how they would use it. I mean, it becomes integral to what the song is. I think the thing with Piet is he very clever, and like a lot of drummers, very clever in stitching that into the music, that it actually becomes integral to the music. That if it wasn't there, you would miss it. You think, oh, it sounds a bit, it sounds a bit empty. I think I'm trying to explain this as straightforward.
No, you're making sense. Don't worry, it's all right. Yeah, you're not going off on one.
No, that's just it. And everyone's got their own style. So yes, it is. But when you see jazz drummers, I mean, they've just got such brilliant technique. You know, they would argue that they don't need that. They just, because of all the paradiddles and the rolls and drags and roughs and everything that they just play it so beautifully that it. But again, it just, you can't see, it doesn't need it with jazz music. Whereas with rock, it's very expansive. But again, it's just a question of. I mean, when you see people like Billy Cobham, I mean, Billy Cobham was and he is a superb drummer, but he used to have a big kit and put in these really big bombastic drum breaks, but he would play all the intricate jazzy stuff as well. So there's no hard and fast rule. Yeah, exactly. There's no hard and fast rule for it. And yes, indeed.
Yeah. One thing as well, I think it becomes, now Neil Peart's always been a fantastic drummer, but there's a special type of drummer where the teenager is, you know, or you catch yourself playing air guitar to a song.
Yeah.
It's very few drummers where well, maybe not in your case, but where you find yourself playing air drums. Like when you go to a Rush concert, you look around and people are just drumming.
Oh, yeah, they are.
And I think that starts with this album. This is the song. I mean, his drumming's always been fantastic up until this point, but this is the bit where it feels like we're getting lead drums.
Yeah. I mean, not that he was in the background on the previous albums.
No.
But it does seem to be more to the fore. And on this, you've got what people now call the Neil Peart signature ride cymbal pattern, which is sort of like a Latin, but it appeared first on Hemispheres, but not quite as prominently, whereas he's obviously perfected this and he's knitted that together with the snare. On this particular song, there's an awful lot of ghosting between the notes that you just pick out when you're listening to the song, and it gives it that circular rhythm. It just sort of propels the whole thing forward. But this is where it really came to the fore, this signature ride. But he said he was always trying to get the Latin feel on the bell of the ride cymbal. That was and he tried it and he ended up with what he got, you know. So he said he didn't quite achieve what he wanted to get, but he nevertheless discovered something useful.
Yeah, we oh, what was I going to bloody say? What you get as well, one thing they have where they reined in the time length of the songs, it seems like they've reined in as well, because in the last couple of albums they sort of made a point of playing extra instruments. On the Farewell to Kings, for example, they made themselves each learn a new instrument.
Yes, they do.
They've reined that in a bit as well. This is very pretty much straightforward, just guitar, bass, and drums, apart from some synthesizer here and there.
Yeah, I think the synthesizer was again sort of being expanded a little bit, but yeah, I think they were just on this particular album they were getting all of those influences and all them things they'd learned and concentrating it into a single stream or few streams and making the songs as concise as possible. And with regard, again, I'm sort of referring to what's in the program and also what I've got in the book, and I'm sure you've got notes on this as well from the book you've got. But they were very much, and we've spoke about it before, they're a bunch of fans of music, and of course this was the new wave era, and they were just trying to incorporate these things and make things a little more palatable, I guess. And I think the setting of where they were, because they were recording back in Canada for this one, after the two albums in Wales, they were back and they went to a lovely little studio called Le Studio, which is in the Morin Heights at Quebec, I should say. And it was a home from them. Their families would be there as well. And I think it was an idyllic one because the studio oversaw the lake, a lake and the mountains and everything. And I think and it says on here, one entire wall of the studio is glass. So on the idle moments, they could just look out and see nature.
Sounds like the video for Tom Sawyer. Have you seen the video for Tom Sawyer?
Yeah, that's it. It's the same.
I wonder if
it's the same studio.
Yeah,
it's the same studio, but this was the first time they were in the studio for Permanent Waves there, and it would be a place they would go back to a few times. And I think that because they were just more relaxed with what they did and had that time off, I think the music comes across as being a little bit fresher, I guess, than what it had been with the heaviness, particularly of Hemispheres. This was the total opposite, and they put 5 of these songs together relatively quickly. Obviously without rehearsing and that was a bit that I forgot about as well with this. Even though they started writing this, they did go back on tour again, only a very short tour, about 3.5 weeks. And they called it the semi-tour of some of the hemispheres. But even that incorporated a lot of the US. I think this was a lot because of the popularity of hemispheres. They still ended up doing some, but they played a couple of dates in Canada and a couple over here to tighten themselves up, ready to get into the studio proper to record this stuff. And they actually, it was a rare thing for them. They'd have to, the Spirit of Radio and Free Will, they actually played live on this little tour.
Oh, as a preview.
As a preview to the new album. And I think Piet says that's very rare for us. I think they said Xanadu they did it on as well, although I didn't know that. I didn't think they did. But they said to go back to Fly By Night for something like that, for an album, for songs to be done. But anyway, again, I digress. Yeah, I mean, terrific song, and a lot of people know it. If they know one Rush song, it will probably be this one.
Yeah, either that or Tom Sawyer, probably.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. I think Spirit of Radio had considerable airplay, and also, as you already pointed out, it would appear many times on many different rock compilations. It's one of those songs.
Well, yeah, as I said, it was the first one.
It made an appearance on many of them. So I dare say it had a lot more airplay, and it did the rounds more than some of their other songs. So, but a great way to open the album.
Great way to open anything. It's a
Yeah,
great song to put on first.
well, actually, they would They would do an awful lot of their tours.
Many a concert it's opened, because
Oh
it's
yeah,
brilliant. It's that opening riff, you know, light on them, bam, bam,
exactly.
bam, bam, you know, yeah,
terrific stuff, and yeah, I never get bored listening to it either.
No, that's one thing. It's it has been. I was thinking, well, how do I review this song? Because it's such a well-known song. Not I'm sick of it, but it's Spirit of Radio. How do you? How do you review it? How do you describe it? It's like. So, what do you think of Ace of Spades by Motorhead? Well, it's
Ace of Spades, you know, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, when I was doing the rock show with Gully and Joe, we did what we're doing right now. Funny enough, we did it with Black Sabbath, the first 8 or so album, the Aussie, the initial Aussie run, and that we had that problem with Paranoid. It was just like, I don't know how to review it. It's War Pigs. What do you say about War Pigs? All right, well, let's go to the next one. It's Paranoid. What do you say? The whole album's like, well, this is a bit of a...
the whole album, Paranoid.
Yeah, how do we...
I mean, you just can't... It is what it is, you know, and, you know, they're all well-known songs in there, you know, how can you review it?
What do you say that hasn't been said a million times?
Exactly, and I think it's the same with this. It's the same with this song. Definitely the same with Spirit of Radio. So
yeah, let's we're kicking this album off with a 1-2 punch, really, because Spirit of Radio straight into Free Will. Probably one of the most straightforward songs in Rush's catalogue. This is pretty much a straightforward verse, chorus.
It is on that respect. Again, it's quite a catchy sort of chorus, isn't it? And you know, some again good lyrics on this. Oh well, let's say
this is where we're getting into the new wave territory as well, isn't it? We're getting... Were the police and the cars out at this point? If they would have been just starting, weren't they? I mean, the first Police album was probably out at this time.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah,
they were sort of railing the tail end of punk, weren't they? That first Police album looks like a punk album.
Yeah, Atlanta. Is it Atlanta?
But they weren't ever a punk band. But
no, they weren't. It was sort of a lot of these bands came out of punk. It's where it sort of morphed into this new wave genre, I suppose, if you want to call it that. But it just became something else, really. And I think the Police's first album was, I think it was either 79 or 80 that it was released. I think is it Atlantis the Moor, isn't it? Again, my terrible French, but I think
it's the first one. Yeah, Orlando's D'Amour, 1978.
Oh, there you go. So it's even
to the... If you hadn't heard a note of them, you would, you would be forgiven for mistaking that for a punk.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, you would.
And that's the inside.
Yeah, it's got that punkish vibe to it, but the music is not.
I think you got the label to thank for that.
I mean, really, it's not. When you listen to the album, it's not.
Nothing couldn't be further from it.
It definitely not. And again, Police were quite a big influence on.
I think they were.
Rush. Yeah, they were quite a big influence on Rush. Certainly, like you said, you know, Pierre really rated, and rightly so, Stuart Copeland. Fantastic drummer, absolutely brilliant.
Stuart Copeland is why I've got those albums. I mean, I couldn't care less about Sting. I know Sting wrote those songs, but something happened between him writing them and
but
stuff
again,
as a solo artist.
in some respects, there's a bit of a parallel there because
I wouldn't mind being a couple of quid behind him, but
yeah, exactly. But again, it's the same thing, isn't it? I think an unsung hero in Police is Andy Summers, a very, very underrated
and Andy
guitarist.
Summers and Stuart Copeland are what I like about the Police.
Yeah.
Although it is Sting that is the songwriter, but they made those songs what they were.
Oh yeah,
like I say, I'd like to be Sting when Sting's skint.
Yeah, absolutely.
When Sting's like struggling and things like, I'll have to do a tour because
indeed, just
these Pilates classes ain't going to pay for themselves.
No, exactly. But but the people, obviously, he was the front man, and he topped and tailed the band, didn't he? I mean, he played the bass, and then his voice just. I mean, he's got an extremely distinctive voice anyway, hasn't he? When he sings. So that's what people tended to focus on. But for me, it was always Copeland. I was always listening to, and a very, very difficult drummer to emulate.
He must have had an influence on, because he's another one of those drummers I talk about where you drum along to.
Yeah, absolutely.
You get your pencils or your pen out and go.
Yeah, exactly.
And
absolutely. And they were a big influence. I mean, certainly at this time when Rush were making this album, they'd listened to Talking Heads an awful lot, and the Police they definitely mentioned. And I think even might have been slightly later, but they started listening an awful lot to Ultravox as well, with regards to
that's a good one. Yeah.
The keys and stuff like
especially
that.
I'm not too familiar.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so much with.
Because everyone thinks, what's the first album they did with Midure? Is it Vienna, the first one?
Might be.
Maybe it is. But
again, I'm not an official.
That was like their fourth album, something like that. Midure joined.
So that was the one.
A lot of people only know the Midure era. Yeah. But they had 3 or 4 albums under their belt. It was John Fox was the original front man.
Yes, he was.
But no, Ultravox is a good thing. I mentioned the Cars as well.
Yeah,
I think
I think so, and I think again, it just goes to show that they're a band of fans. They really listen an awful lot, and the British New Wave movement was something they really focused on. I think even things like Joe Jackson and people like that they would listen to as well as the others.
Well, he was like a slightly punk.
Yeah, he's sort
Elvis Costello, wasn't he?
Actually, Elvis Costello was another one I'm fairly certain they cited as well that they would listen to, and you can sort of hear those sort of influences. Again, it's parlayed through their style of doing things. But
my mum saw Elvis Costello in Southend.
Really?
Yeah, it must have been the Kursaal. Yeah, it wouldn't have been Clissovillian. It must have been the Kursaal. And apparently my uncle, she took her little brother along, my uncle. Apparently he fell through the floorboards.
Really? Wow.
Floorboards collapsed under.
A little bit of wood rot there, I dare say. It's just... But again, the Kursaal was a fairly big venue in its day. I mean, certainly...
it's still there. It's just not a concert venue. It's a
bowling alley, and
I don't even know if it's that now. But yeah,
I don't even know.
It is there.
Yeah, it's still there. The building is still there. I think there's some sort of preservation order on that anyway.
Last time I was in there, it was a bowling alley.
Yeah, same here. It was the same. But I think it is still that. I think it is still that.
Yeah.
Unless, but I haven't been down there in a while.
I was just thinking with the what's gone on in the last 3 years. I don't know what it would be now.
But... Yeah, I've not been down there recently. I must admit, not down onto the seafront. I know if I tend to go there, I tend to go at the far end at the Shoebury, and it's just a little bit quieter. Sorry, back to Free Will. Yeah, it is straightforward, but it's still quite busy. Particularly the solo section. I mean, that is a very very fast 6/8 section, and they're basically all soloing. I mean, again, the way that comes in, and it's the bass at the front on its own, really quite an intricate bass line, and you've got Pierce playing away, really pushing it, and again, a lot of ghost in between the actual hits, and that just again giving it that momentum and that circular motion, and then License soars in over the top with a solo that trumps all of it, obviously, because that's the bit that really comes out at you. It's a really, it's very fusion, rock fusion now that they're playing.
Rush have that knack though of making it all sound effortless, though, don't they?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, like if I was gonna start a Rush tribute band with the limited capacity of musicianship I have, I'd probably go, well, let's try Free Will. That's pretty. Let's not do Sickness Book 2 just yet. Let's start with Free Will, and even that I'd be going, hold up, start
exactly.
again. Like,
exactly. But again, there's subtle time shifts even in that, because it's basically going sort of 6/4, 7/4. You got the extra little beat added in, but it sounds seamless because of what they've perfected and how they play. Again, you just don't hear it, you just feel it, and it again. Well, what can we say about it? I mean, I like this song, and again, a big crowd favourite with this particular song.
It's one of the big hits, isn't it?
And again, possibly, this, some people would argue that this is another one of his really good solos on this particular album. And it's certainly quite memorable, and the crowd love it. I mean, I remember watching, and I've got Rush in Rio anyway, but when they're doing Free Will, I mean, the crowd are absolutely sort of "we are not worthy" sort of thing as they're playing it, particularly that solo section. It is, what more can you say about this? I mean, it's a really good song.
I love the way, because it kind of dismantles itself towards the end and then seamlessly goes into that main bridge of the chorus again. Slightly slower, and then Geddy does those really high vocals, doesn't he?
Yeah, indeed. It's a really good number. Again, a massive crowd favourite. It would be played on a lot of tours. Not every tour.
I can't really. I would have thought this would have been a mainstay.
Oh, it is a mainstay for many of the tours, but they didn't play it absolutely every tour. Certainly not towards the end. They didn't play it so much. And even Spirit of Radio, they dropped that for one tour because they just got sick of playing it. I think this was more the mid-80s, or mid to late 80s.
Yeah, me and Luke were talking about that with Iron Maiden. There's a couple of songs that they've dropped lately, and especially taking into account if we get a live album or a live release, so I don't really need another version of that taken up. I'm quite happy for another song to go in its place. That's, can't remember which one, mind, but but probably Number of the Beast or something like that, or Hello Bit Name, one of them. But it's just, we were saying, hearing that for the millionth time, I'm quite happy to see something. Not that we don't like it, it's just
and I think and I think these bands do that, and Rush certainly did. Sometimes they'll do that just to try and freshen the set for themselves, and also to give the fans something different. That's something I always like, and certainly cool about Rush, and I'm sure you'll say the same about Maiden, and there are other bands that do this, that suddenly they'll pull something out of the vault that you wouldn't expect them to play, and then you listen to it and you think, oh wow, I forgot about this one. It's really good. So I can see
seem
why
to be trying to do that on their later tours as well. They seem to be pulling a few out that haven't. They sort of revisited the Somewhere in Time album. There was songs that was played on this tour that weren't played since the Somewhere in Time tour, and they even did Alexander the Great, which was never played at all until this tour. It had never been played live.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, there
Well,
was some.
it's a nice surprise for the
Mm,
fans for a start, and also must be fresh for them to think, well, we've never done this. Let's do it. It gives them. It just
we've
keeps.
gone off on one now, but
Yeah,
the
no, we have.
catalyst to that is that Nico McBrain, legend that he is, has joined an Iron Maiden tribute band.
Really?
So whilst he's not on tour of Iron Maiden, he drums in an Iron Maiden tribute band, and
Wow.
this tribute band is playing rarer stuff. So
That's wow.
apparently he got in trouble because he'd played stuff off the new album that hadn't Maiden hadn't gigged at that point.
Right.
And
Okay.
apparently they had started playing Alexander the Great, and that was always this holy grail
Mm.
that had never been played live before, and this tribute group started playing it. So
Oh.
Steve rung Nick and went, "Oi, what do you think you're up to?" And he went, "Well, we're playing it. You don't play it. Why can't I play it?" And he went like, "You don't play anything in your tribute group that we don't play."
Yeah.
To which Nico went, "Well, you better start bloody playing it then, because I'm not stopping playing it." And apparently that was fair enough.
I'll bet that went backwards and forwards a few times as well.
I can imagine as well, because Steve Harris is the governor. Well, and Nico don't, when
I
he
say Nico, bless him.
they start playing it then.
but I mean, bless Nico. I mean, he must be one drummer that he's doing a tribute to himself. It's really
not bad.
Well, good for him. Good for
He ain't
him.
got to learn them, is he?
No, exactly.
Again, as well, at his age, if you don't use it, you lose it. And if they're going to have a couple of months off and all the rest of it, he's got to keep. He always plays anyway. There's a because he has his rib restaurant, Rock and Roll Ribs, and they've got an outside section, and at weekends cover bands play.
Yeah,
and he always plays with them anyway. So he's playing, Smoke on the Water and all the stuff, all the classics with a bunch of local musicians anyway. There's always like a Friday night jam night and stuff like that.
I think he's not the only one. I know Mick Fleetwood does that because he lives on, was it Maui is the island he lives on, and he's got a band there and they play Fleetwood Mac stuff. And I know, I can't remember what the program was, but Brian Johnson of AC/DC was over there. He went up there and sung a few songs with them.
Yeah,
just covers, and some of the Fleetwood Mac stuff. So Mick Fleetwood is the same. As you get older as a drummer, you do need to keep oiling the machine. You need to keep it going, otherwise you just stop. And so, I totally get that. Totally get that. Anyway, we've digressed quite a lot.
We've digressed.
Sorry.
What we haven't spoken about so far is lyrics.
Oh yeah,
well we touched on it a little bit with Spirit of Radio.
Yeah.
Basically the nature of the music business. It's pretty self-explanatory, really. It's one likes to believe in the freedom of music, but glittering prizes and endless compromises shatter the illusion of integrity.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's the radio as well at the beginning. Begin the day with a friendly voice, a companion, non-intrusive.
Yeah.
Invisible airwaves cackle with life. It's about radio.
Indeed. Again, I know it is so brilliantly put together, and to get something with that sort of subject and get it in such a palatable form to be able to hear it. They say on this album, Peart's maturing as a lyricist is just really in evidence here with the layered meanings of various of these songs. And they say about free will here, it's a violent imagery. Song warns of blindly following a particular tradition or ideology, while at once stating the importance of shaping one's own destiny. The increasing trend of philosophical fatalism is utterly rejected here, while songs like Something for Nothing, back on 2112, encourage the listener to shape their own destiny. Free Will is a song that takes a step back in order to tell the listener that they actually can, which I thought was quite an interesting thing. But again, I mean, you got some great lines in this one. I mean, the chorus, you can choose a ready guide in some celestial voice. If you still choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. Although that is a misprint on this. It says you cannot have made a choice, but he definitely says you still have made a choice. Made a choice. So there is a typo here. You can choose from phantom fears and kindness that can kill. I will choose a path that's clear. I will choose free will. Yeah, and then it just sort of goes on about, well, the hardships of life, really. There are those who think that they've been dealt a losing hand, cards are stacked against them, they weren't born in Lotus Land. All preordained, a prisoner in chains, victim of venomous fate. Kicked in the face, you can pray for a place in heaven's unearthly estate. Superb. Just superb lyrics. Yeah. What more can you say to that? You leave it to the great man himself.
They don't need explaining, do they?
No, they don't.
That's another.
I think that was the one thing Pitt was always conscious of. He said, we're not brain boxes. We want to put things in such an easy way that people can grab it and make of it what they will. You don't need a PhD in it, in speech and deep meaning to get the meanings of these songs. They wanted to make it accessible for anybody.
And I think it was Einstein that said, when you're explaining something, if you can't round it off in a sentence, you don't actually know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And I think,
sum it up. If you can't sum it up, and
I think that the one thing is, Piet would say, and all three of them said it. We're not looking down our noses at people. We're the same as you, and we're just trying to put these across in a very succinct way. And I can't remember the guy's name from Smashing Pumpkins. Big
Billy
fan
Corgan.
of these. As him, he said, really, when you listen, he said, people say they're a bit up themselves and that. He said, they're a people's band. They are a people's band. And I thought that was, again, a very interesting comment from somebody who really got into their music, and he had his own problems as well, but yet Rush music spoke to him quite a lot.
I think Billy Corgan, time's been quite kind to him as a songwriter. I think a lot of his stuff's aged really well. That song Bullet with Butterfly Wings, the chorus, the main line, despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage, I think summed up perfectly what a rock star goes through, the way the system grabs them and spits them out. And if you look at the way someone like Amy Winehouse or Kurt Cobain or the rock and roll suicide, but then you look at the way Britney Spears is at the moment, they're not going to be happy until she ends up that way. The way the media, like we've just had with Sinead O'Connor, you either burn yourself out and kill yourself at a young age, or you end up not being able to tell up from down as you're older. And Kurt Cobain drove himself mad trying to get out of that, because he saw the system for what it was and how he'd sort of been railroaded into it. And hold on, this wasn't what I wanted. This wasn't what so he raged against it. And then they went, right, brilliant. And it became a hit. And it was like, well, no, but this isn't what I meant. And no one gets what I'm trying to say. Well, you're going to have to do it. And he makes it even heavier and more visceral. And they're like, oh, visceral music. That's brilliant. We'll package that and sell that. And then, he makes an album that's unlistenable. It's full of feedback and screaming and in Utero, it's just this horrible open wound of a record. And they went, brilliant. Open wound record, rage, suicide, and that just got marketed, and he just went, I can't, and then he drives himself mad, and that's what that line is. Despite all my rage, I'm still in a rat in a cage. No matter what I do, this is just going to get thrown back at me, and manipulated and twisted rounds. And
I think in retrospect,
they're only ever going to use it for their own.
So in retrospect, I mean, obviously he was probably contractually obliged to and Nirvana would contractually obliged to knock out an album every however 1 or 2 years or whatever. Probably the best thing to do was say, right, I'm not writing anything. That's it.
Yeah.
I just refused to go in the studio. Possibly, well, say, who can tell? You know, it may be if he had got out of it, he may have still been here. Yeah. But when something like that actually you rage, well, what's the band name? Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
I think you do it either for your
well they're now called Rage 4, the vaccine, but yeah.
Well, yeah. It just crazy. It's a difficult place to balance it, to keep your sanity, I guess, in anything like that that's intense. And I mean, the line that you quoted about being a rat in a cage, I think you could probably, people can relate to it because they can see it in their own lives and in the lives of their nations and how things are done. So I think that line operates on an awful lot of levels, although I'm assuming
every passing generation it becomes more clear because
you
see the same story
play
out. I mean, Kesha is another one now. She's just released a really good album. She started out as one of these pop starlet girls, you know, but she's just put out this really raw, honest album where she's got out of a contract and now she's independent and she's made this album telling the truth of everything she went through. And you go, well, this goes back to Elvis. This goes back to, you know,
yes, it does. It does.
Judy Garland, you could say. You know, it's the same story over and over again. And we go, oh, look at them, they're mad. It's like, no, they got driven mad, you know. And it's amazing Rush avoided it, really. The trappings, everything that they achieved, one of their biggest achievements was what they avoided.
Well, basically staying sane. I think and that's no mean feat in itself. But you know, we've discussed this in previous episodes that you know they had stable family lives, and that kept them grounded. You know, and I dare say they kept each other grounded as well. I think if they'd fragmented and one really wanted to live the high life and the other two didn't, or 2 and 1, then things would have probably collapsed. The fact that they were all of that mind that they probably a certain amount of protection for each other as well. So hurrah for them. I'm glad they did, because otherwise we wouldn't have had this huge back catalogue of fantastic material to go through and listen to. I've got nothing more to say about Free Will. Great song. It is a big fan favorite, and it was played on a lot of tours, not every tour but a lot of tours from it onwards.
Right, moving on. Jacob's Ladder.
Yes, interesting. They're all interesting song, this one. Initially, and I saw it on an interview, that this was going to be an instrumental initially. And also it was going to be a longer piece. Possibly, I think Piet said it could have even gone to sort of like 14, 15 minutes. But of course,
I can see that.
But in the end, they said, well, because of the way the album was taking shape, they had to condense it and also not make it an instrumental. But there's not a lot of lyrics in this particular song anyway. You basically just got 2 blocks of lyrics, which are just painting the picture of basically a storm, really. And it's almost matter of fact on this one. I mean, you know, clouds prepare for battle, dark and brooding silence, bruised and sullen storm clouds have the light of day obscured, looming low and ominous in twilight premature, and thunderheads are rumbling in a distant overture. I mean, you don't need to say anything. That's it. You're painting a picture. You know, it's something we all understand.
I'm reminded of Genesis on this song as well, especially the when it goes into the keyboard section in the middle of the song, and then kicks into that nice little riff, that din, 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 you know, and yeah, it brings to mind Genesis, early
Yeah,
Genesis.
it does to me.
Yeah.
It does to me. And when I see them do this live on on the tour, that's one of my abiding memories when it went into that keyboard part, and like the lights went down, and then Lee's voice comes in and saying, "All at once the clouds are parted, light streams down in bright unbroken beams." And again, it reminded me of Genesis, but these just a whole row of lights at the front of the lighting rig just beamed straight down.
Yeah.
And it just looked really cool, really cool. It was a bit of dry ice, but it was just them beams, and I still remember that today after all these years. Yeah, it's more on the instrumental side of things, and I don't know. You can't say the lyrics were put in as an afterthought because they're extremely well thought out, but I think they wanted to keep the lyrics minimal and go with the music, and it's quite a linear, what they would call a fairly linear sort of song. It sort of goes at a certain pace, but you've got those stabs coming out of that quiet section, and they're built up, and then it's that and it's sort of all tripping over itself. Again, they must really have got to look at each other when they were putting that together, because it's not a typical syncopated pattern.
Yeah, and the way it ends,
yeah,
normally this is like it all just rings out and then just
yeah,
and you think that at this point you'd have some sort of dun 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 dun, dun and then we'd be bum, 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 bum,
yeah,
into the next section of the song, but it's like no,
that's it,
we're stopping.
that's it.
we're not going there.
No, exactly, and again, just a different way of finishing the song. It just finishes with the bass,
That's enough.
and that's it.
Yeah.
But having said that, I mean, it's still over. It's about 7.5 minutes, isn't it? I think this song. It's about 7.5, but they said it could have easily been double that. But again, they just really condensed it down. But still a good piece. I like it. I like the song. It's again, this one would come and go. I think in the set list, it certainly didn't get played on any of the tours after this one, and I think even then they only brought it back on their very last tour, I believe, on the R40 tour. They definitely played it then.
Right. Okay.
I don't think they played it an awful lot. It would appear on proposed set lists for tours and then get deleted.
I thought it would have been a fairly if it would sort of they'd play it once or drop it and then bring it back the
Yeah,
next, like sort of in between.
no,
Especially in those later tours when they were doing like 3 hour long.
yeah, they brought it in, but I think they said it just didn't. I think Peart said, he said, you look at some of the older songs and you just think, no, can't go back there. But they did with Jacob's Ladder. They did go back to it for that final tour that they did that on. But yeah, I mean it's got a very textured song, and gives that sort of panoramic view of a thunderstorm, really, doesn't it? I think again, I liked it. I liked the song, and they said they felt that this song was actually a good sounding board, or a developmental track for things that were going to come in the future, just with regards to how they would layer things and texture things on future albums. So that again, they saw it as quite an important song in that respect.
Yeah.
I've got nothing else to say, Joe.
Right, let's flip it over onto side 2. So Entraîneur, I think I've pronounced that right.
You're doing Adele, boy. I think it's Entraîneur.
Notre Oh, okay.
New. Yeah.
This is quite a nice little song.
Yeah.
I like this one.
Yeah. It this is a good one. It was oh yeah, we forgot to mention Spirit Radio released as a single. I believe also Free Will was also released as a single. This was the third single off of this album. Entree.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I thought I was going to say this one is sort of the hidden gem in the album, but
I don't know. I don't
single.
know. Yeah, I don't know how it did. I mean, there's no mention of how high it got in charts. Certainly not in the UK. So I don't
And
know.
was it a regular in the set list, like, especially on later tours?
Well, it was done. Well, I remember them playing this on the tour. Although when you look at a Permanent Wave set list, it's not on there. But I'm certain they played this. I remember them playing it at Hammersmith Odeon.
Yeah.
But they would always sort of tweak the set slightly and bring in an odd song. Yeah, just
especially with the 5 nights. I'll guarantee you they would have.
Yeah, they would have. Yeah, and I think because I see them on that 5-nighter marathon, I saw them on the third night, the middle night of the 5, and at that point, I mean, they were pretty much. If there was any sort of sound issues and whatever technical problems, they'd all been overcome by that point, and it was just a very slick presentation of the whole lot, and they were on it.
£2.50 as well. I bet there was. There must have been someone that went all 5.
Oh, I reckon so.
Yeah, well, more than one at least.
It definitely had. They'd all sold out. I wanted to go for a second night, but you just couldn't get hold of the tickets. So. But yes,
hot stuff then, definitely.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was. It was definitely because they'd arrived here in the UK. They were really getting some momentum over here and in Europe generally. Yeah, great little song. This I like it. I like the textured guitar on this. That sort of stands out to me. He uses a 12-string acoustic on the choruses, which just gives it that really rich, warm sound. Again, they're just not mucking around. That's a wrong word. They're really experimenting and shaping things musically, but texturally as well. Just trying different things and bringing things that you possibly even wouldn't expect would work. I mean, it's quite. The chorus on this is quite laid back again, isn't it? Whereas
you've got that
verses are quite
the vocal melody that's very catchy, and it's just backed by a subtle synthesizer like keyboard.
Well, you've got the keys, and
even the main riff is clean guitar. It's not distorted or heavy in any way.
Yeah, it's not overly processed. I mean, it's still got a little bit of distortion to it, but it's not a lot. It's quite clean, as you said. And it's quite choppy. It's very almost staccato, really. And Peart's playing like a standing hi-hat beat on this. The bass is fairly busy on this one as well. So it just pushing things in like a graphic. You remember graphic equalizers? No, here we go. I'm giving my age away, but graphic equalizers, you can augment and diminish certain bands of frequencies over the overall sound. That's what Rush are doing here. That's what it sounds like to me anyway, with the different types of sounds and everything they're using. And they say here the title Entre Nous is French for between us. And was again, here we go. And we're going back to Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead. Here we go. Oh dear, controversy, or controversy, however you want to say it. Peart's lyrics once again alludes to the individual, makes the point that even our closest relationships, even in our closest relationships, our individual differences can remain hidden, secrets to be discovered. Although the song suggests it's a positive point. Each one's life a novel no one else has read. Is perhaps a more exciting prospect than the one-size-fits-all love songs that have found themselves occupying the airwaves for decades. And it's quite true, really. It again, things are just them sort of even joined in bonds of love. We're linked to one another by such slender threads. Again, it's not really an awful lot more you can sort of say to that. It says exactly what it's portraying, isn't it? You know, and we are planets to each other, drifting in our orbits to a brief eclipse. Each of us a world apart, alone and yet together like two passing ships. Again, well, so we just can't. We could go on and on just how brilliant a lyricist he was. But again, you know, I think just quoting these lyrics is probably enough for people. So just to latch onto some of them, and we're not quoting all of them. Just if you haven't heard them and you haven't heard the album, get the album and listen to it, and just look at the lyrics, and it speaks on so many levels, and it's very simple but yet profound.
And just out of curiosity as well, if you could just leave us a comment, and if you give us one of them as well while we're talking about it. But yeah, are you using this as a guide or a companion to listening to the Rush back catalogue yourself? And are you using these episodes as an introduction to the album or an afterthought? Are you listening to the album yourself and then listening to this afterwards? How do you listen to Rushcast? I am wondering how you use it, because I'm just curious. How would you? I'm not sure how to frame these, but yeah. And yeah, if you haven't heard the album, I can't see why you would be listening to this. But
well, that's true.
Maybe you do want an introduction, but
yeah, that's it. This is probably a good album. It's a good album actually for people to come into Rush. Actually,
this is probably one of the best to start with.
Yeah, I would say so, because it is, by Rush's standards, it is pretty accessible.
Yeah,
it's a very accessible album.
So let's move on to Different Strings.
Ah, yes, Different Strings.
The shortest song on the album.
Yes, it is. I think it's just about 3 3/4 minutes or something.
This is a really nice, mellow, slightly melancholic as well, I think. Quite.
Yeah. I think it is. They say it's a companion piece to the previous track, Entre Nous, because the lyric here just delves a little bit deeper and explains that despite all our differences in sensibility, perception and experience, we do share fundamental characteristics that we can all relate to. And from the line, it's a part of us to be found within a song. It does come across slightly melancholic, but I think it's still trying to keep it positive, but it doesn't. There's sort of it sort of laments a little bit, I suppose, especially with things like.
I mean, on the surface, this came across to me as like a bit of a breakup song or a song about a struggling relationship, but I don't know.
Possibly, but it just that's too much. I mean, it's with
more
lines
from the
like
emotion from the music.
Yeah, I think it's more the emotional side. I mean, with all there really is the two of us. We both know why we've come along. Nothing to explain. It's a part of us to be found within a song. And I mean, it does lament a bit like what happened to our innocence. Did it go out of style, along with our, naivety or naivete, as they put it here with the French, no longer a child. Different eyes see different things, different hearts beat on different strings. But there are times for you and me when all such things agree. It does to me, it seems to point on the differences, but then it's sort of saying, yeah, maybe there is, but there are times when we're there together,
Yeah.
So I think it's trying to paint it as more of a positive. This was also only ever meant to be, as far as I'm aware, they've never played this live. It was only supposed to be a production number, for the album, never to be played live, whereas predominantly Rush were always recording stuff that they could reproduce live.
I mean,
This was
inevitably, with such a vast catalogue, there's bound to be stuff that never was played live.
No,
but
exactly, and this was one of
with
them.
those long sets they used to play, you'd think more or less everything would have.
Yeah, but this one they never did. And also on this one, just an aside, Hugh Syme, the artist, the graphic artist, he played piano on this. He did make a. We said before, yeah, and he plays some piano on this. He makes another guest appearance on it. Lovely. The one criticism from a lot of fans is the main guitar solo at the end, which is they describe it here as a yearning guitar solo. It's sort of they think it fades out too quickly. Right at the end, they said it should have gone on longer and hear more of his solo.
And that's another thing as well, because I dare say, if this ever was played live, that would build up to a big solo that would maybe turn into a bit of a climax.
They might do. They might
build up a bit and then
tempo changes.
Maybe turn it into a big bombastic climax, or wind it down again to the initial. But I do like that boom, 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 boom. That little touch on the strings there. But it's just it's a nice, it's a cool song.
Cool. Yeah, I like this song. Alec Lifeson's comment on this is he's proud of the solo regardless, even if people think it's way too short. And he said, I love the feel of the tune. It reminds me of soldiers sitting around a piano in a smoke-filled pub in England during a war. It's this type of solo I really enjoy playing, emotive and bluesy, which it does sound that. It's that sort of thing. Lovely little song. Again, they say it's a delicate song along the lines of Madrigal from Farewell to Kings. And he says, unlike the vast majority of Rush songs, this would only ever be on record, never live.
Yeah, that's unusual, must be said. All right, well, moving on. There's only 6 numbers on this one. So we're at the last track, and Natural Science.
This was the problem child for them on this album.
Well, this is the epic on the album.
Yeah,
as well.
This is. Well, I think it's about 9.5 minutes. I think.
Yeah, not 9. Yeah, 17. Yeah, 9.5.
More or less.
Yeah, more or less 9.5.
Yeah, I don't know if you've got any stuff.
Nothing in the big scheme of things when it comes to Rush, especially with what we've been.
Yeah, exactly.
About the last couple of albums, but it's a long one. This one, and this one's grown on me. Actually, I was a little bit neither here nor there actually with this song to begin with, but I really like it now. It's very
it became a fan favorite. It wasn't initially, but it was a fan favorite towards the end, and they did play it on quite a few tours. They enjoyed playing it. It's a song that they like doing, but it wasn't. It took a little while for it to come together. The reason being is it wasn't going to be Natural Science, because, and again, I'd forgotten about this. Neil Peart was writing a lengthy piece called Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, a medieval epic from King Arthur's time.
I've got that very book down there.
Yeah, and he was writing it because it's from around the 14th century, and he said he was trying to transform that while retaining its original form and style, but it seemed way too awkwardly out of place with the rest of this material, so it got shelved.
Yeah,
and they said they might do it, but they never ever did, and so he had to lock himself away for 3 days to try and come up with the lyrics for another song, and this is how it came out: Natural Science, with its 3 sets of lyrics for this particular song. again, with this, they would pillage some of the music that they had started putting together for Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and they would use it for this song, only bits of it, and then they'd write new parts for it, but the lyrics were a totally new idea, and things that it took him 3 days, I think, to come up with these, and he said it was a bit frustrating, but once he started getting onto it, it's sort of got multiple themes. So, and he refined it into 3 distinct sections. So, yeah, it is regarded as an epic, actually. This song is regarded as one of their last epics.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a lesser band, this would be the crowning achievement. I'm just saying, we're a bit spoiled at the moment. We're used to a 9-minute song from Rush. Well,
yeah, well, you know,
we're used to side-long songs at this rate, you know.
I'm just trying to see if there's any other comments on this. No, not with regards to that. I was going back to the book. Yeah, the first section of this. I mean, I don't know what you've got. Have you got any comments about this in the book you've got? With regards to,
I had a quick flick through before, actually. Nothing really jumped out at me, but this is actually Kirk Hammett from Metallica's favourite Rush album. I did get that, but let's get who's this? Oh yeah, they're talking quite a bit about it, actually. Of course, the most progressive song that's probably one of the most explosive and complex ever. We didn't know this at the time, but this would be one of the last great examples of these instrumental showcases we'd hear. Kirk Hammett, for sure, there's a riff on Jacob's Ladder that influenced the riff on The Thing That Should Not Be. Doesn't say when he sings it. I can't hear that. Thanks for putting that in brackets. Sings it. All of the things. Portnoy, here we go. To me, the 2 drumming benchmarks on this album were Jacob's Ladder and Natural Science. I've covered Jacob's Ladder a couple of times. I did it once in Working Man on the Working Man tribute album in the mid-90s. Many years with Dream Theater. No, I was not talking about nothing with Natural Science. Langevin, who's he? He is. Shit. Yeah. You still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. Yeah.
I just want to know who this guy is. 1 second. Lyricist and drummer in Canadian. Voivod. Yeah. So the drummer and lyricist from Voivod. Natural Science is exactly my favourite Rush song. There's all kinds of stuff in that song to the point where it's a concise version of everything Rush represents in one song. There's a killer 7/8 part in the vein of King Crimson. Then there's the part where Gilly talks about a mechanized world out of hand, you know, and there's the allusion to short-lived societies on the grand picture of space and time. And only Rush and like Magma would bring me to such territories. So in one song, you've got everything that I found interesting and scary in the modern times we are living in. In the early 80s, or 1980s specifically, which definitely inspired Voivod, it is the spark that led to Dimension Hatros. That's what their one of their albums.
Yeah.
Like Microscopic Worlds compared to Galaxies and all that. But drumming wise, in Jacob's Ladder and Natural Science, there are some really good rolls. The thing with Rush is sometimes you think like a 7/8 beat. It's not really. There's a lot of stuff in Jacob's Ladder and Natural Science that takes years to figure out and understand. See if there's anything else here. Here's one actually. A little A final analysis. Would you buy into the idea that Rush was the band that invented progressive metal? I don't think anyone invented progressive metal. I think that's something that just got come into a thing on its own. I can't really be bothered to read the answer to that one. But this is just
That's fair enough.
who invented flares? Who was the first person to wear them?
Exactly.
But here's one for you. I always wonder what would have happened if, when the new wave of British heavy metal come along, Rush was one of the bands that embraced it, like Budgie or Uriah Heep or even Ozzy and Black Sabbath with Ronnie James Dio, rather than completely running in the other direction. What if Rush strapped on the bullet belts and leather jackets and went that way instead of the keyboard direction? To which Kirk Hammett from Metallica says, that's a really interesting concept. But you know what? It's just like the new wave of British heavy metal was probably too underground. And by the time it became overground, the new romantics got them instead.
Yeah.
I think they started wearing suits, right? Well, so Metallica at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. It did go
But
that
that's
way.
an interesting
It is.
What if they went new way? What if? Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could discuss that until the cows come home, really. Yeah. What ifs? It's all ifs and buts. The fact is, they didn't, and they went the way that they did. Yeah. I think with regards to natural science, I think it's one that takes you a little while to sort of get into it, but once you're into it, you think, this is a good song. It's a clever song, certainly thematically. Say the first part being tide pools, and then hyperspace, and then permanent waves, which is where it gets the album title. It's quite a good panoramic view of things from tiny people locked in their own little worlds, basically. These little tidal pools, people. I mean, that line there, what was it? Simple kind of mirror to reflect upon our own, all the busy little creatures chasing out their destinies, living in their pools, they soon forget about the sea. Which is quite, that's interesting for like society generally. We sort of all get locked up in our little lives and not seeing the bigger picture. It just and that's sort of what it sort of comes to me. And sort of, was it wheels within wheels in a spiral array, a pattern so grand and complex, time after time we lose sight of the way, our causes can't see their effects. I mean just really, really, to pull all this together in 3 days, I think is really something. I mean, I'm not gonna carry on going on with the lyrics on that. Again, you've just got to listen to the song and look at the lyrics as it's going through it. I mean, it's just I think the production of this is interesting. The beginning of this, you can hear water being lapped. This was done by Neil and Alex dipping oars into the lake outside of the studio, and Lee's gentle vocal joins licensed acoustic 12-string guitar. At this point, even they were projected across the lake to get some natural reverberation on the guitar and Lee's voice as well. They were just which I thought was quite an interesting thing to try and do.
A nice introduction, actually. I quite like that melody.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if it's acoustic guitar, just clean.
It is. Guitar. Yeah, you got a 12-string acoustic when he's singing that. I mean, it's got that lovely crisp sound, and then of course that disappears when you get a big cymbal roll in, and then he goes to the electric, and with that arpeggiated pick that he brings the whole song in with, from then on. Again, in this one, I think they said again they would use different rooms of the studio and have different amps to get different acoustics for the guitars, just to experiment with crossing them over and just to get different textures again. They really experimented quite a lot on this one. Again, subtle shifts in time signature. Really, yeah. Again, I guess it's from a musician's point of view, it's a feast to play it because there's just so many bits on this.
Yeah, you say it's in 3 bits. I mean, I don't know at what point it cuts off, but it seems like the first 5 minutes or so builds up in one.
Yeah.
Precise.
Well, that
riff, and then it kicks in, and then you got a nice little keyboardy bit, and then it.
Yeah.
And then it sort of around the 5-minute mark, it cuts into that dan 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 dan. You know, and now I don't know if that's the next section.
Well, I think it's the lyrics that are in 3 sections. I think the music is more seamless, but you do have
song actually where it seems like it does shift.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
I was listening to it, you know, running about doing different things, and I just had it playing on my phone in my earphones. Yeah. And at one point, I actually thought I accidentally skipped a track.
Oh,
it does sort of skip into.
Yeah.
It sort of segues into something, and you think it's, and then it just bang, just. I think it's that.
Right. Well, that's the second part. That's the hyperspace part.
But it.
Starting with a quantum leap forward. Yeah.
It does, just come out of nowhere to the point where I did think, have I skipped a track there? Have I hit my phone in my pocket, sort of thing?
So the first part of this song, if you want to go, is the acoustic bit, and then where you get a more straightforward beat when it comes in. The lyrics "wheels within wheels in a spiral array," and the bit that I quoted, "causes can't see their effects." That's the lyrics for that musical segment, and then it goes into that. You get that effect, and then you get the big riff, as you've just pointed out. That's the start of the second part, which is hyperspace, with that first line of quantum leap forward in time and space, and then that carries on again. It goes back to the no wonder they don't understand is the last sort of bit of that, and then it goes back and it reprises that wheels within wheels in a spiral array again, which sort of brings it to the end of that second part, and then you're going to that instrumental part of it, and then the permanent waves part, the part 3, is when the lyrics come back in with it's more open. Was it science like nature must also be tamed? It's a bit more of a straightforward, relatively speaking, beat. But that's how it's pieced out lyrically with regards to the music.
Quite a good line as well.
Yeah, yes, it is. I mean, especially the ending of that. I mean, it just where it really sort of begins to gather a bit of momentum. At the end, wave after wave will flow with the tide and bury the world as it does. Tide after tide will flow and recede, leaving life to go on as it was. So basically, it's just this never-ending cycle of life may get destroyed, but then life is reborn and it carries on. So it's still quite a positive thing, and it fits with the rest of the album. You know, I can now see why it didn't do "So Get Away" and "The Green Knight." It just wouldn't have fit at all in the flavour of this album. So
yeah,
it was, again, it became a big fan favourite along with Spirit of Radio and Free Will, and was played on quite a few tours. I see them perform it quite a few times. The times I see them on various tours, it's always a good favourite. But which is interesting because initially when this album was released, it sold well, but it didn't sell as well as some of the previous albums, and it got a bit of a lukewarm reception from the hardened fans initially. Those who were like into their prog rock, they sort of not rejected it, but they
people that wanted the 20-minute.
basically, that was it. And I remember Geddy saying there was no way they were going to do a Hemispheres 2. It just
Yeah, I think they'd hit that wall, hadn't they? They'd gone, right, this is as far as
yeah,
we can go with
yeah,
this. And
yeah,
but I can imagine if that was what you enjoyed, especially if you was like a Yes fan or something like that, you
yeah,
would probably think, hold on a minute, I've been
yeah,
a bit, but
yeah, indeed.
it's not. Sometimes less is more. You haven't.
Absolutely, definitely. I think I know we mentioned, or I mentioned Hugh Syme playing on this. They did have another guest on here, but only to play a little bit of steel drums on that reggae bit of Spirit of Radio. But I can't pronounce this gentleman's name. I don't know whether you can. Where is it? Steel drums by Erwig, and then he's got a massive long surname, Chua Duo or something like that. I'm not even good. That's it. I'm not even having Erwig. I'm assuming is how you pronounce his first name. But that's the only other little bit with regards to others appearing on the album. I don't know whether you can see it on the CD.
No, I can't see anything.
No, yeah, it just.
Yeah,
But again,
pretty cool picture of the band there.
oh yeah, and as you say, you got.
Oh, I'll tell you what, it might be in this one. It might be in the box set one.
It might be in the box set. You might see it, but it should be with the. It's after the lyrics on this.
Special featured guest Hugh Syme piano, inspiration and vocal coach and Daisy the dog.
Yeah,
Still drums by right.
Yeah. You see what I mean? But yeah, whoever I can't pronounce his surname. I tried to have a go, but again, came out like Del Boy French or whatever. But Erwig, go on, you have a go.
I think you've made this up.
No, I don't know. That's what they say. So there you go. Just again, there were various nicknames and stuff mentioned on this with regards to the credits and thank yous and whatever. This was
looking this up on Wikipedia.
Try and look it up on Wikipedia. This was an album that they enjoyed making. It was more relaxed, and they actually finished it early, so they still got a little bit of time off before they went over. They actually mixed this over here in London. Trident Studios in Soho was when they did the mixing of it to finish it off. But they were only here for a couple of weeks. So again, they said the whole process of making this album was a much happier place than what it was for them on the Hemispheres. And I think it sort of comes across like that in the music. I think the music sounds quite airy and quite. I know they're on their game, but it's got that slightly relaxed. It hasn't got that heaviness to it. So they were happy doing this one. It was a happy time, especially as they could see their families. Is it an anagram of something?
Yeah,
you still look it up, are you?
Yeah, I've got additional personnel, and that's not.
No, it might be another. It must be a little used.
I mean, even the hairdresser to the model on the album cover is credited here. You've got engineers, photographers, master, piano.
Yeah.
Girl credited as Ooh La La as Paula Turnbull.
Yeah, Paula Turnbull.
Yeah, and obviously Hugh Syme on piano.
Yes.
But Neil Peart is in the drums, tampini, tambours, orchestra bells, bells, wind chimes, baldry, triangle, crotales.
Crotales. Yeah, he playing timpanis and all sorts of things.
again, it's mentioned with Hugh playing, but no, this guy's not.
Yeah, I just wonder if it might be a very little
Yeah,
used nickname for Neil Peart. Could well be.
yeah. I'm gonna have to put,
I really don't know. It's a bit of a mouthful, that name anyway. It just
let me type in Rush wig, because there'll be some.
there's got to be something.
Rush will have their own Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was joining Rush groups to share this around in, some of them you have to answer a question just to make sure you're not
Yeah.
and it was like, what was the make of Alex Lyson's first guitar that he got bought for Christmas? I'm like, how are you expecting me to know that? You know,
I don't. Not off the top of my head. I don't know what guitar he got.
and well, your search does not match any document.
Oh well, there you go.
Yeah,
I think give it up. Give it up.
yeah. I think that's an in joke there.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
there is some sort of in joke there. I think on the album cover, I think again they had to remove
If you happen to be Erwig Chukadar,
or whatever his name is.
and
Yeah,
we do wholeheartedly apologise. Leave us a comment.
yeah,
Let us know how wrong we are, and
yeah,
feel free
exactly.
to come on and tell us about your experience playing the steel drums on
Yeah,
Permanent Waves.
yeah.
We'd love to hear all about it.
It again, these are just little asides
What
with
would you do
regards.
if I actually got an email?
Oh, I'd say just read it out. You know,
Yeah,
that's it. Read it out, and we can give due recognition. You know, for it. The album cover is. I was looking at some notes.
Yeah, we've
about
not discussed the album art cover, have we?
the art cover on this. It's a photo taken by Flip Shulker of this is the Galveston seawall in Texas during Hurricane Carla of 1961, and then Syme layered other photos on top of this, including a photo of himself waving. He's the one leaning on the walk cross here sign
There, yeah.
in the background. That's him, and you've already mentioned the Canadian model Paula Turnbull. But the other one, there's a newspaper on that bottom left.
Yeah.
It had a headline, Dewey defeats Truman, referencing to the famously incorrect headline that the Chicago Tribune published in reference to the 1948 US presidential election. Even, it says it, even 32 years later, the newspaper was still sensitive to its mistake and complained to the band. Syme subsequently changed the paper on the cover to read Dewey defeats. Just misspelled it. But on mine, it's.
So my one's blank. It's not
Yeah,
anything.
I mean, mine. I can see
on this one. It says blah blah blah.
Yeah, exactly.
On the new one, blah blah blah.
On my album cover, it's I can see it, and it definitely says Dew. It's not Dewey, but Dewey defeats. Actually, I think mine. Actually, it does look like a Y, but it's been whited out, and also the name of the paper's been whited out as well. And that's on the album cover. On the tour program, it's just got a white blank across that bit. So yes, it caused a bit of controversy. So they were told it had to be removed. And also in the background on the right hand side, where you can see a couple of buildings and some billboards or like displays, that did initially have the logo, the Coca-Cola logo from the small billboards in the background, and the logos have been replaced by the band members' surnames in similar typeface. So that's that.
Myself.
Yeah, exactly. It's very difficult to see on the CD, but on the album I can see it. So yeah, again, just little asides really as to where that picture came from and how Hugh Syme.
Is there anything on the concept and what it's trying to?
Well, no, I suppose because it's a
Permanent waves, yeah.
permanent waves from a massive hurricane that was going on at the time. But obviously, it's also an electrical signal as well, isn't it? You know, a waveform. So I think it's probably double layered with it with regards to that. I can't see anything else on that really. They're the only notes I've got on that. Just looking through what they've said about it. Oh, yeah, we said it's recorded in Le Studio, Morin Heights, Quebec, which sadly now doesn't. It's a derelict building. Apparently, it's no longer in existence.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know how long ago that was.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, chart. Yeah, it is sad. Chart position: Canada #3, UK 3, US #4. So it didn't sell badly. It definitely sold pretty well, but I think it would take a while before it would be critically acclaimed as a good album. I think it's been a bit of a slow burner, and people appreciate it more now with the passage of time. Really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think they've all done.
Yeah.
Yeah, even their worst album, you know, say something like Progressive Steel, has gone on to do well.
Yes,
in the big scheme of things.
Yeah, this didn't sink as low as Caress of Steel by any means, but it still wasn't as immediate hit as some of their other albums. So, but it is regarded now as an important album, as we discussed.
Oh, definitely, yeah, it's definitely an important album in their catalogue and in their development, and the perfect segue to what's to follow, which we shall get to next week. Yes. So please do join us for Moving Pictures. And yeah, I mean, I think, well, they've done it again. What can you add, really? I think this is
again, it's I think as Jack Black would say, there's still plenty of sauce coming out of the bottle.
Yeah. And
you know, and
it's not, I wouldn't say a step forward in order to take a step forward, but just taking a foot off the brakes slightly in order to slow down to see, right, are we doing a right turn here or is it a left turn here? So a slight taking off the pedal just to get their bearings to see where they are going to go next. And
indeed, but it's still, as you said right at the beginning,
and there's still many twists and turns to come as well.
I mean, there is. But as you said earlier, right at the beginning, maybe a more concise production and presentation of these songs. They would appear straightforward, but there's an awful lot of progressive ideas within these songs, and especially with them toying with slightly different influences, as you said, like the reggae and new wave, and it's by no means a just an album being released for the sake of releasing an album. There's certainly some method in here and some great playing. It's just progressive in a slightly different way to what they've been doing before.
Yeah, perfectly summed up. So yeah, as ever, thank you for watching. I hope you're enjoying this so far. I'm certainly enjoying doing it. I know you are, Paul.
Yeah.
And this is getting pretty easy now. We're we on our 8th album now.
Yeah.
So yeah, join us as we go forward, going through the back catalogue of Rush. We've got loads of great music to cover, and we're going album by album, and yeah, I'm enjoying this. I'm really glad we started doing it. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks as always for watching. If you've got this far, give us one of them. If this is your first episode, go back to the beginning and work your way through. Listen with us. Again, you can use this as an introduction or as an afterthought. And this is your show. So join us. Join in the conversation. Let us know when you first heard the album. Where did you buy it? Did you see this tour? What was your first Rush concert? What's your favourite Rush album? What's your least favourite? What's your favourite song? Where did you agree with us? Where were you wrong? Where were we wrong even? Is there a little detail that we missed out? Or what's your interpretation of the lyrics? You know, there's loads to talk about. And yeah, I think that's a sign of a good show is when you're listening to it and you want to join in. You're like, oh, the only thing wrong with this is that I'm not there. And but you are in the comment section. Let us know. And until then, listen to Moving Pictures, and we'll be joining you next week, and we'll be talking about that. So thanks as always. Take care, everyone.
Yeah.
And we'll see you all soon.
Yeah.
All the best.
See you, folks. All the best. See ya. Bye.